I never thought I'd be betrayed by the one person I trusted the most. But in that storage room, I heard my husband whisper, "She didn't notice, the loan went through." What loan? Why was he so happy about it? Why didn't I know anything? You won't believe what I uncovered when I dug deeper. Stick around for the shocking twist that will leave you questioning everything. And before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like this video if you want more jaw-dropping stories like this. I had always trusted Daniel. He was my husband after all. We'd built a life together. Quiet, simple, nothing flashy. I had no reason to believe anything could disrupt the calm rhythm of our days. But that night, everything changed. It started with a whisper, a soft murmur from the storage room. The door was ajar, the faint light from the hallway spilling in just enough to catch a glimpse of Daniel's silhouette. He was talking to someone on the phone, but his voice was low, careful. She didn't notice. The loan went through. My heart stopped. I didn't move. I stood frozen, just beyond the doorframe, my pulse hammering in my ears. The words replayed in my mind, over and over. Loan? What loan? I hadn't heard a thing about it, not a word. I peered inside. He was pacing, his hand gripping the phone tightly. His face was a mask of determination, but there was a glint in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Something sharp, almost calculating. "She didn't notice," he said again, as if repeating it to himself, as if convincing himself it was done. I felt something twist in my chest. It wasn't just confusion, it was betrayal, something cold and heavy that I couldn't shake. I had trusted Daniel with everything, our life, our home, our daughter, and now, it seemed, there was something he'd kept from me, something big. I wanted to storm into that room, demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I backed away slowly, retreating into the hallway. I needed time to think, time to piece together what little I had. The truth always finds a way out, doesn't it? It's just a matter of how long you can pretend it's not there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every shift of the wind outside, pulled me back to that moment, the whisper, the hidden loan, the fear gnawing at my gut. What had Daniel gotten himself into? And more importantly, why hadn't he told me? Morning came, but it brought no relief. I got up, made breakfast like I always did, pretending nothing had changed, but I knew it had. There was something I had to find out, something I couldn't ignore. I decided then. I was going to uncover the truth. But where do you even start when everything you thought you knew begins to crack? I moved through the house in a haze, the normalcy of the day juxtaposed with the storm brewing in my mind. Every time I passed Daniel, I couldn't look him in the eye. He seemed normal enough, carefree even, but I could feel the distance growing between us, a distance I had never imagined. The loan wasn't the only thing I needed to understand. It was why Daniel hadn't trusted me enough to tell me. Why had he kept the secret? And what was really going on behind his smile? There was a drawer in his study, one he never allowed me to touch. He always said it was just work stuff, but the feeling in my gut told me there was more to it. I decided that tonight, after dinner, I would open that drawer. But for now, I played the role of the good wife. I went about my day, smiled when necessary, asked the usual questions. But all the while, I was planning. I was going to get answers. And if the truth was anything like that whisper in the dark, I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. As Lena prepares for what's to come, the tension in her home simmers just below the surface. The real question isn't whether Daniel will be caught. It's what Lena will do when she uncovers the truth. The days after that night felt like walking through fog. My thoughts were clouded, my mind unable to settle on anything but that whisper. The loan went through. What did it mean? Why did Daniel sound so relieved? He had always been the responsible one, the dependable one. And yet, here he was, keeping secrets from me. The first day, I tried to ignore it. I forced myself to go about the usual routine, picking up Samantha from school, making dinner, pretending everything was normal. But it wasn't, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. By the second day, I was more certain than ever that I needed to find out the truth. I wasn't going to let this mystery eat away at me. I wasn't going to let him lie to me. Not like this. After dinner, when Daniel was in the living room watching TV and Samantha had gone to bed, I slipped quietly into his study. The door creaked open just enough for me to slide in. The room smelled like him, wood polish, faint cologne, and the ever-present scent of old paper. I had been in here countless times before, but tonight felt different. Tonight, I was a trespasser in my own life. The drawer, the one Daniel always kept locked, the one he said was for work stuff, was the first place I went. I hesitated for a moment, the key heavy in my hand. He had left it on the kitchen counter earlier that evening, as if he had forgotten it was even there. A small gift of opportunity, one I couldn't pass up. I unlocked the drawer with a soft click, the sound almost deafening in the silence of the room. Inside, I found papers, documents, notes, a few folders. But one folder, at the back of the drawer, was different. It was thick, and the edge of a bank statement peered out from the top. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the key to unlocking everything. I pulled it out slowly, my hands trembling. My eyes scanned the top of the page. An address, a bank account number, the loan amount. My stomach churned as I saw the number listed, $500,000, a loan of $500,000. I felt a wave of nausea. This was far more than I had imagined. This was more than just a small, hidden debt. This was serious. I flipped through the pages, one after another, the details growing darker and more complex. This wasn't just any loan. It was tied to a company Daniel had started years ago, a company I'd never heard of, and a name I didn't recognize. Travis Investments. There were references to payments, transactions, and debts that stretched far beyond the amount on paper. The more I read, the more I realized this loan wasn't something simple. It wasn't for a house, or a car, or a vacation. It was tied to something much larger, something secret, something dangerous. I heard a noise from the hallway, a door creaking open, footsteps. I froze, the folder still in my hands, my heart hammered in my chest. It was Daniel, returning from the living room. I quickly shoved the papers back into the drawer, but not before seeing the name of a financial institution listed at the bottom of one of the documents. It was an overseas bank, based in the Cayman Islands. I closed the drawer quickly and stood there for a moment, trying to steady my breathing. I couldn't get caught, not yet, not until I understood everything. I wiped my sweaty palms on my jeans and turned toward the door, but as I reached for the doorknob, I heard his voice, low, muffled, as if he was talking on the phone. Again? My stomach sank. Who was he talking to now? Was it someone about the loan, someone involved in the deal, or was it something worse? I couldn't risk being seen now. I waited for a moment, my ear pressed to the door. I could hear him faintly, but the words were too far away to make sense of. I needed more answers, but I couldn't do this alone. When I finally opened the door, I moved silently through the hallway and into the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water to steady my nerves. My mind was racing. The loan, the offshore account, the hidden business deal. It all pointed to something far darker than I had imagined. And yet, the more I uncovered, the more questions I had. What was Daniel mixed up in, and why hadn't he told me? I had to know more, but I couldn't risk confronting him yet, not until I understood everything. Tomorrow, I would take a different approach. I would follow him, see where he went, who he met with. The pieces of this puzzle were scattered all around me, and I was determined to put them together, no matter what it took. As the night stretched on, the weight of the mystery began to press down harder on me. I knew, deep in my gut, that the truth wasn't going to be pretty, but I also knew that I couldn't walk away now. I was already too far in, and whatever Daniel was hiding, I was going to find out. The next day, Lena sets out to follow Daniel, determined to uncover where he's been going at night. Her investigation deepens, and the stakes grow higher with each passing hour. What will she discover next? The following morning was eerily quiet. I moved through the house like I was in a fog. The world around me felt distant, muffled, as if everything were happening in slow motion. Every little thing reminded me of the night before: the drawer, the loan documents, the name on the papers. I couldn't shake the image of the Cayman Islands account number, or the unsettling feeling that something much larger was at play than I had originally thought. Daniel left early, as usual, for a meeting. I pretended not to notice, going through the motions of getting Samantha ready for school. She was in her usual rush to catch the bus, asking if we could do something fun over the weekend, something normal, something I could feel good about. But I couldn't focus. My mind kept racing back to Daniel's behavior, the phone call I had overheard, and what I had found in that drawer. I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions, but this was different. Something felt dangerously off. After Samantha left for school, I grabbed my keys and followed Daniel's car from a distance, keeping a cautious eye on where he went. I knew this wasn't the best way to do things, but I couldn't help it. I needed answers. I trailed behind him through town, past familiar streets, until he turned down a narrow, quiet road that led to an industrial area near the outskirts of Riverside. It was a part of town I rarely went to. The kind of place where old warehouses and factories were tucked away, with no one around to question what went on behind closed doors. Daniel pulled into a parking lot behind a small, unmarked building. My heart skipped a beat. It looked like a storage facility, with no visible signs or logos, just a plain, nondescript building with a single door at the back. He parked, got out of the car, and disappeared inside. I stayed in my car for a moment, my mind spinning. What was he doing here? Why was he so secretive about it? And why hadn't he told me about this place? It felt like everything I thought I knew about him was crumbling, piece by piece. I waited. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I stared at the building. Every nerve in my body was on high alert. I wanted to follow him, but I couldn't risk it. Not now. I needed more information. I needed something concrete. Eventually, Daniel reappeared, carrying a small box wrapped in brown paper. He glanced around before getting into his car and driving off. I waited a few minutes before starting my engine and following him again. This time, I kept a greater distance, my mind racing. Who was he meeting, and why the secrecy? I had to find out. But I knew I couldn't do it alone anymore. I needed help. That night, when Daniel returned home, he acted like everything was normal. He kissed me on the cheek, asked how my day went, and we sat down for dinner as if nothing had happened. But I could see the strain in his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way his hand twitched when he reached for his fork. I didn't say anything at first. I let the quiet moments linger between us, the silence hanging thick in the air. Samantha was in the other room, doing her homework, and I knew I had to make this conversation count. "Where were you today?" I asked casually, pretending to focus on my plate. Daniel didn't look up immediately. He paused, his fork halfway to his mouth before lowering it. "Just a meeting, business stuff." I swallowed, my throat dry. "Business stuff? With who?" His eyes flickered, and for the first time, I saw a flash of something unfamiliar: fear, guilt. "Just people I've been working with. Nothing to worry about." I pressed my lips together, resisting the urge to let the anger rise. Nothing to worry about? The loan, the unmarked building, the overseas accounts. It all meant something. "I think I have a right to know, Daniel," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You've been keeping things from me. I overheard you on the phone. I saw the documents. What's going on?" For a moment, he was silent, his gaze shifting away from mine. I could feel the weight of the truth pressing on him, squeezing the air out of the room, and then, without warning, his face hardened. "I told you, it's nothing," he snapped, his voice sharp. "Just business. I'm doing what I need to do to protect us." "Protect us from what?" I demanded. "If you're protecting us, then why are you keeping secrets?" Daniel's temper flared. "You wouldn't understand, Lena. It's complicated. And I don't want you involved. Not yet." The word stung. I wasn't some outsider. I wasn't some person he could hide the truth from. We were partners in this life. "You can't keep lying to me, Daniel," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "I'm not going to just stand here and pretend everything's fine when I know you're hiding something big. What is this really about?" For a long moment, he didn't say anything. His eyes were locked on mine, but there was something distant in them, as if the man sitting across from me wasn't the same person I had married. It was as though a wall had gone up between us, and I couldn't climb it. "I'll tell you everything soon," he said, his voice softening. "But not tonight. You're not ready for it." I stared at him, my mind racing. I wasn't sure if I could trust him anymore, and I wasn't sure if I could wait. Something in me told me that I had to know the truth, now. Later that night, I found something else, something even more damning. A letter slipped underneath the front door, addressed to Daniel. The return address was from a law firm in Los Angeles, and the words written on the envelope sent a chill through me. Final notice, immediate action required. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. The truth was finally within reach. But what would it cost to uncover it? The stakes continue to rise, and Lena's investigation deepens. And what she discovers next will change everything. The letter sat on the kitchen counter, its bold lettering mocking me. Final notice. Immediate action required. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity, my fingers trembling. I hadn't opened it yet. I couldn't. Not until I was certain I was ready for whatever it said. But deep down, I knew the answer wouldn't be good. It couldn't be. If Daniel was tangled up in something that was bringing legal threats into our home, the life I thought we had built was a lie. My stomach twisted as I thought back to everything I had seen, the loan documents, the mysterious building, the overseas accounts. It was all connected, and the walls were closing in. I had to know what it meant. I had to understand what was at stake. But even as I reached for the letter, my heart raced. I wasn't sure I was ready to face the truth. What if Daniel was in deeper than I thought? What if he was involved in something illegal, something dangerous? I tore open the envelope and unfolded the letter slowly. The words blurred as I read them. It was from a law firm in Los Angeles, a firm specializing in financial fraud. My mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. There were references to unpaid loans, fraudulent documents, and misrepresentation of financial status. The letter claimed that Daniel's company, Travis Investments, was under investigation for suspected illegal activities, including money laundering. The firm demanded that Daniel either respond to their office or face a lawsuit that could destroy everything we had worked for. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Money laundering. The words echoed in my head like a drumbeat. I had no idea what this meant for us, for our family, but I knew one thing. Daniel hadn't told me the truth. He had lied to me about everything, and now I was tangled up in it, whether I liked it or not. I dropped the letter onto the table, my mind spinning. I couldn't breathe. I had to confront him. I couldn't live in this limbo anymore. But as I stood there, trying to gather my thoughts, I heard the sound of Daniel's car pulling into the driveway. My heart skipped. He was home. He had no idea what I had just uncovered. I felt a cold, steady rage build in my chest. How could he keep this from me? How could he drag me into something so dangerous, so far out of my control? I had always trusted him, but trust was a fragile thing, wasn't it? One mistake, one secret, and it shattered. I wasn't going to let him destroy everything. Daniel walked through the door, his usual smile fading when he saw my face. He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. He could tell something was wrong. Good. He needed to feel the weight of it. I didn't waste time. We need to talk, I said, my voice firm, though my heart pounded in my chest. What's going on? Daniel asked, setting his briefcase down on the counter. He was trying to act casual, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. He knew. He could feel it. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked over to the table and picked up the letter. I slapped it down in front of him, watching as his face drained of color. For the first time since all of this began, I saw fear in his eyes, the fear of getting caught. What is this, Daniel? I asked, my voice steady but cold. What is this loan, and why didn't you tell me about it? Why didn't you tell me about the investigation? He swallowed hard, his eyes flicking between me and the letter. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He was caught. There was no easy way out of this one. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and almost apologetic. Lena, I didn't want you to worry. This isn't what it looks like. Then explain it to me, because it looks like fraud, I spat, my anger finally boiling over. It looks like you've been lying to me, keeping secrets, and now we're being dragged into something illegal. I never meant for you to find out this way, Daniel said quietly, his voice trembling. But yes, I made mistakes, big ones, and I'm paying for them now. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes avoiding mine. How? I asked, my breath coming fast. How much did you owe? How much did you hide from me, Daniel? He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the floor, clearly struggling to find the words. When he finally looked up, his face was lined with regret. I've been in debt for years. I tried to cover it up, tried to protect you, protect our family from the truth, but it kept piling up. The loan, it was meant to be a way out, a way to fix everything. But I got in too deep. So all of this whole life we've built, it was based on lies, I whispered, my voice breaking, on money you didn't have, on deals you didn't tell me about. He nodded, the guilt heavy on his face. I didn't want you to know. I didn't want you to see me as a failure. But now everything's falling apart. I felt the weight of his words settle on my chest. All this time, I had believed in him, trusted him without question. And now I was left holding the shattered pieces of everything we had built together. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I wanted to scream at him, to demand more answers, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The hurt was too much. I didn't know what to do anymore. And then, without warning, he spoke again, his voice quieter this time. Lena, I swear, I'll fix this. I'll make it right. Just don't walk away from me. I looked at him, my heart torn. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust him again. But something deep inside me knew that the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. I don't know if I can, I said, my voice shaking. I don't know if I can keep living with all these lies. As I stood there, the truth finally spilling from Daniel's lips, I realized the full scope of his deception. But what if there was more? What if the truth wasn't just about a loan and a business gone wrong? What if everything Daniel had told me was just the tip of the iceberg? And the letter, it was only the beginning. Lena's emotional battle is just beginning, and the next step in her investigation will uncover even deeper secrets. But will the truth destroy everything she's worked for, or will it set her free? The next few days passed in a blur, the weight of Daniel's confession settling heavily in my chest. We barely spoke. It felt like the space between us had grown into an abyss, and no matter how much I wanted to reach across, I wasn't sure I could ever bridge it. I spent hours thinking about everything I had learned, about the loan, the offshore accounts, the fraudulent business deals, and now, the revelation that Daniel had been hiding his debts from me for years. But there was something else I couldn't shake, something deeper. I couldn't stop thinking about the fear in his eyes when he saw the letter, the one from the Los Angeles law firm. I had never seen Daniel like that, vulnerable, broken, but it didn't make sense. Daniel was always the one who had everything under control. Or so I thought. I knew there had to be more to the story. Daniel hadn't just borrowed money. He hadn't just been lying about his finances. There was something darker, something buried in his past that was driving all of this. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing a piece of the puzzle, a piece that Daniel had kept hidden from me. And so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I needed answers, and I couldn't rely on Daniel to give them to me. I called Tom, the old friend of Daniel's I had met a few days ago. He had been a part of Daniel's past, someone who had known him before I came into the picture. Maybe he had more insight into who Daniel really was, what he had been hiding. I reached out to him with a simple message. "I need to talk to you. Can we meet?" Tom replied almost immediately. "I knew this day would come. I'll meet you tomorrow at the usual spot." The usual spot, a small cafe on the outskirts of Riverside. I had been there a few times with Daniel and Tom, but today I was going for answers, not small talk. The next morning, I drove to the cafe with my stomach in knots. I didn't know what I was expecting from Tom, but I hoped it was something that would finally make sense of all the chaos Daniel had unleashed. When I arrived, Tom was already there, sitting at a corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee. He looked just as I remembered, rough around the edges, his hair a little too long, his eyes always a little too guarded. But today there was something different about him. His eyes were tired, as if he had seen too much. He looked up as I approached and motioned for me to sit. "Lena," he said, his voice low and tired, "I didn't think you'd come. Daniel didn't want you to know." "Tell me what happened," I said, cutting straight to the point. "I need to understand everything. Why didn't he tell me about his past? Why did he hide everything from me?" Tom hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "You really don't know, do you?" He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Daniel's always been good at keeping things hidden, but his past, it's complicated. You wouldn't believe the things he's done to get where he is." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean?" "There was a time, years ago, when Daniel was in too deep. He was involved with some people who weren't exactly on the right side of the law. They were into some shady deals, real estate scams, money laundering, all kinds of things. And when he got out, he tried to bury it. He tried to start fresh with you, with the family." "But why didn't he tell me?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "Why keep it all a secret?" Tom's expression softened, but there was a look in his eyes that told me he knew more than he was letting on. "Because he didn't want you to be part of that world, Lena. He thought if he kept you in the dark, he could protect you from it. But the truth is, it was always going to catch up to him. And now it has." The weight of his words hit me like a punch to the gut. Daniel's past, the one I had never asked about, was much darker than I could have ever imagined. He hadn't just been hiding his debts, he had been hiding his entire life from me. Tom leaned back, his face grim. "Daniel's been running from his past for a long time, Lena, but it's caught up with him now, and there's more. There's a reason he didn't want you involved in this." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "His debts aren't just financial," Tom said, his eyes narrowing. "There's blood on his hands. Real blood. He's not just in trouble with the law. He's in trouble with people who don't forget, people who want what's theirs." The words hit me hard. "Blood? What was he talking about?" Tom seemed to sense my confusion. He lowered his voice even further. "Lena, I'm telling you this because you need to know what you're up against. Daniel has a history with some dangerous people. He owes them more than money, and they won't let him go so easily." I felt like the ground beneath me was slipping away. Everything I thought I knew about Daniel, everything I had built my life around, was unraveling before me. The man I loved, the man I trusted, was not who I thought he was, and now I was caught in the middle of it all. Tom's words echoed in my mind long after I left the cafe. I had barely said goodbye before rushing to my car, my heart pounding. Blood on his hands, dangerous people. What did that even mean? The truth was becoming clearer, but it was more horrifying than I could have ever imagined. Daniel's past wasn't just a mistake, it was a shadow that had been hanging over us, and now it was pulling me into its darkness. I didn't know where to go from here. I didn't know who to trust. All I knew was that I had to confront Daniel, but I wasn't sure I could handle the full truth. And there was something else, something even more chilling. As I drove home, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. "Lena?" A deep, unfamiliar voice on the other end sent a chill through my spine. "You've been asking the wrong questions, but don't worry, we'll make sure you get the answers you're looking for." The line went dead. What did these people want with Lena? The investigation was just beginning, and the deeper she dug, the more dangerous things became. The answers she sought might not just destroy her marriage, they might destroy everything. I sat in my car for a long time after the call ended, staring out at the empty road ahead of me. The voice on the other end of the line sent an icy shiver down my spine. Who were they? What did they know about Daniel? And why did they think I was asking the wrong questions? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in over my head. This wasn't just about a loan anymore. It was about something far darker, something far more dangerous. I had no idea what I was up against, but I knew I couldn't back down. Not now. I drove home, my mind racing. The house felt colder than usual when I walked in. It was as if the walls were closing in around me. Daniel was sitting on the couch, his face weary and drawn. When he saw me, he sat up a little straighter, his eyes scanning me carefully. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice strained. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I tossed my keys on the counter, trying to keep my composure. I wasn't sure if I was ready to confront him with everything I had learned, but the phone call, it had changed everything. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know there was more to the story. "You didn't tell me everything, Daniel," I said quietly, my voice betraying the tension in my chest. "There's more going on, isn't there? You're involved with people I don't know, people who want more than just money from you. What aren't you telling me?" Daniel's face tightened. He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I could see the weight of his guilt pressing down on him, but this wasn't the time for him to hide behind that facade. Not anymore. "I told you, Lena, I never wanted you involved in this," he muttered. "It's too dangerous." "What's dangerous?" I demanded, my voice rising. "The loan? The offshore accounts? The blood you owe? What aren't you telling me, Daniel?" He stood up suddenly, running a hand through his hair in frustration. His movements were quick and jerky, like a man trying to keep his composure while being torn apart from the inside. "You don't understand, Lena," he said, his voice shaking. "It's not just the money. I got involved with people who have a way of making sure you pay, no matter what." My heart skipped. No matter what. I thought I could get out, that I could fix it, but it's never that simple. I've been trying to protect you, to keep you safe from this world. I never wanted you to know how deep I was in. I took a step toward him, my voice steady, but every word I spoke felt like it was slicing through the air between us. "What do you mean, how deep you were in? What did you do, Daniel?" For a moment, he didn't answer. He just stood there, looking at me with those eyes full of regret. Then he finally spoke, slowly, deliberately, like the weight of the words was physically painful for him to say. "I was involved in a deal, a real estate deal, back when we first got married. A few shady people came into the picture, and I couldn't back out. The money was too good. I made a mistake, Lena. I signed papers without fully understanding what I was getting into. And now I owe them more than just money. I owe them my life." I felt the ground shift beneath me as the gravity of his confession sunk in. His life? What the hell did that mean? This was more than a financial problem. It was a life-or-death situation. "Who are these people, Daniel?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who are you involved with?" He took a deep breath, his eyes haunted. "They're a group that deals in things that don't show up on paper. I thought I could pay them back, but it's not that simple. They've been watching me, watching us, waiting for the right moment to collect. They've got their people who make sure the debt is paid, no matter what. And the worst part is, they know about you, Lena. They know about Samantha. I could feel my breath catch in my throat. My mind reeled with the implications of his words. This wasn't just about Daniel's mistakes anymore. These people were dangerous, and they were now a part of my world. Our world. I had no idea how far this could go, but I knew one thing: I couldn't let them hurt my family. "What do you want me to do, Daniel?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How do we get out of this?" He swallowed, looking defeated. "I don't know, but I'm trying to fix it. I'm making calls, trying to work with people who can help get us out of this. But it's not enough, not yet." The room felt colder than before, and I could feel the weight of Daniel's past pressing down on both of us. I had always believed that we were partners, that no matter what, we would face challenges together. But this was more than just a challenge. This was a fight for survival. "Why didn't you tell me, Daniel? Why didn't you tell me before it got this far?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a raw vulnerability in his eyes, a kind of pain I had never seen before. "Because I didn't want to lose you, Lena. I thought I could protect you, but now I'm just trying to keep you safe. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." As he spoke, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, interrupting the heavy silence that had settled between us. I looked at Daniel, my pulse quickening. Who was at the door? I hadn't heard anyone approach. And then, as if on cue, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Daniel's face went pale. He motioned toward the door. "I'll get it," he said, his voice shaky. But I stopped him. I had a feeling that whoever was at that door wasn't just a friendly visitor. It wasn't just a phone call. Something was about to happen, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. "I'll answer it," I said, my hand on the doorknob, my heart pounding in my chest. As I opened the door, I was met with a figure in a dark coat, his face obscured by the shadows of the porch light. "Lena," the figure said, his voice cold, sharp. "I think it's time we talked." Lena's journey into the darkness of Daniel's past has only just begun. The deeper she digs, the more danger she uncovers. Who is this mysterious figure at her door, and what does he want? I stood frozen for a moment, my hand still gripping the doorknob. The figure at the door was tall, cloaked in shadows, but there was something about the way he stood that made my pulse spike. An air of authority, of danger. His voice sent a chill down my spine. "Lena," he repeated, this time more clearly. "We need to talk." I glanced over my shoulder at Daniel, who was standing behind me, his face pale, his eyes wide. He didn't move. Didn't speak, he just stared, as if caught between fear and recognition. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Who was this man? What did he want? "Who are you?" I finally managed to ask, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a step closer, his figure more defined in the dim light. He was wearing a dark coat, and his face was partially obscured by a baseball cap. But I could see enough to know that he wasn't someone I'd ever met before. "Lena," he said again, his voice low but commanding. "My name is Aaron. I'm here to talk about your husband's debt." He glanced briefly at Daniel, who was still rooted in place. "It's time to settle up." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. A debt? What was he talking about? The mention of Daniel's debt sent a cold wave of panic over me. My first instinct was to shut the door, to protect myself and Samantha from whatever was going on. But something in his presence held me there. "What debt?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Aaron's eyes flicked to Daniel, who still hadn't moved. "Your husband owes more than just money, and it's time for him to pay up." I could feel my throat tightening, the air growing thick with tension. I glanced at Daniel, desperate for him to explain, but he just shook his head. The fear in his eyes was unmistakable. "You can't just show up here and—" I started, but Aaron cut me off with a firm, steady hand. "Lena," he said, his tone almost apologetic, "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here to help. But your husband's time is running out. He's made some very dangerous people very unhappy. And those people don't wait forever. The words hit me like a punch. Dangerous people. I felt the ground beneath me shift. I had known Daniel was in trouble, but this? This was something else entirely. Daniel's voice cracked as he finally spoke. Lena, you need to listen to him. They're not joking. This isn't just about money anymore. These people, they won't stop until they get what they're owed. I could see the weight of his words settling over me, like a heavy, suffocating blanket. But Aaron wasn't finished. I'm giving you a choice, Lena, he said, his voice calm but insistent. You can walk away now, pretend you never saw me. You can go on with your life, ignore the mess Daniel's made, or you can help him make things right. But understand this, if you don't make the right choice, things are going to get a lot worse. I took a step back, my mind reeling. I wanted to scream, to push him away, to end this nightmare. But deep down, I knew that wasn't an option anymore. I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't pretend like everything was normal. You're talking about something illegal, aren't you? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Aaron nodded, his eyes unwavering. We don't do things by the book. Your husband knew what he was getting into when he signed those papers. Now, he's in too deep, and if he doesn't pay, the consequences are severe. Daniel's face was drawn, pale as a ghost. The guilt on his face was overwhelming, and I could feel the flood of emotions crashing over me. Betrayal, anger, fear, all of it mixed into one storm that threatened to consume me. How could he have kept this from me? For years, we'd built a life together, and now it felt like it was all falling apart in one moment. Aaron seemed to sense my hesitation. You have 48 hours to make a decision, Lena. After that, it's out of your hands. Before I could respond, Aaron turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the night, leaving me standing there with nothing but my racing thoughts and the weight of Daniel's silence. The door clicked shut behind me, but the tension lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. I stood in the hallway, the coldness of the night still pressing in on me. I could hear the distant sound of Aaron's footsteps fading away, but it felt like the world had frozen around me. Daniel was still standing there, his back pressed against the wall, his hands trembling. The man I had married, the man I thought I knew, was no longer the person I had trusted. And in that moment, I realized how far his secrets had gone, how deep he had fallen into a world I never even knew existed. I had to do it, Lena, Daniel whispered, his voice breaking. I never wanted you to be part of this. I never wanted you to see this side of me. But now they're coming for us, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. I swallowed hard, the bitterness in my throat threatening to choke me. You think I didn't know something was wrong? You think I didn't feel the distance between us? You've been lying to me, Daniel, lying to me for years. He flinched at my words, as if each one cut deeper than the last. I could see the regret in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I was trying to protect you, he said, his voice desperate. I didn't want you to get involved in this. I didn't want you to see the truth, the real truth. The truth? I repeated, my voice rising. The truth is that you've been living a lie, Daniel. And now, people like Aaron are knocking on our door, threatening our family. And for what? A loan you couldn't pay? A deal you should have never gotten involved in? I didn't have a choice, he said quietly. It was either this, or lose everything. I stared at him, feeling the distance between us stretch farther with every word. You didn't have a choice, I said, my voice shaking. You chose this, Daniel. You chose to hide the truth from me. You chose to get involved with people who would destroy us, all for the sake of what? Power, money, and now we're both paying the price. I'm sorry, Daniel said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry, but sorry wasn't enough. Sorry couldn't undo the damage. Sorry couldn't fix what had been broken between us. Just as I was about to walk away, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I hesitated, glancing down at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. It's time to make a decision. We know where you are. We're watching. The word sent a jolt of panic through me. The walls were closing in, and I had no idea who to trust. But one thing was clear. If I didn't act soon, it would be too late. Lena is faced with an impossible decision. Who can she trust, and what will she do to protect her family from the dangerous world Daniel has dragged them into? The message sat on my phone screen like a ticking bomb. Its words burned into my mind. It's time to make a decision. We know where you are. We're watching. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I stared at the words, the air around me thick with a suffocating dread. I looked at Daniel, but there was nothing he could say to make this go away. His eyes were pleading, desperate, but I wasn't sure if I could believe anything he said anymore. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground beneath me crumbling with every passing second. I needed to make a decision. I needed to protect myself and my daughter, but how could I trust Daniel to protect us when he was the one who had put us in this mess? "Who are they, Daniel?" I asked, my voice trembling but resolute. "Who are these people? Why did you get involved with them? What exactly have we gotten ourselves into?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He just stood there, his face pale and drawn, looking like a man who was already lost. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing the room in that familiar way, but now it seemed frantic. The man I had once known so well was slipping further and further from my reach. "I never wanted this for you," he whispered. "I thought I could fix it. I thought I could pay them back, but this is bigger than I ever realized. They don't just want money, Lena, they want control. And if I can't give it to them, they'll take everything." I felt the weight of his words crash down on me. Control. What did that even mean? What kind of people had he gotten involved with? I knew one thing for sure now. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about something much darker. I couldn't keep waiting for answers. I had to take matters into my own hands, but the question was how. How could I get out of this without dragging my family deeper into danger? I turned toward the door, my mind spinning, and Daniel's voice followed me, desperate. "Lena, please, don't do anything reckless. We can figure this out together, just trust me." But I couldn't trust him, not fully, not anymore. "I'm not going to sit here and wait for them to come for us," I said, my voice more forceful than I'd intended. "I'm going to find a way out of this. For Samantha. For me." I grabbed my purse, slamming it down on the table in frustration. My fingers trembled as I dialed the number for the law firm in Los Angeles, the firm from the letter. I needed to know everything. I couldn't wait any longer. The phone rang. Once, twice. And then a voice answered, "Lena Carter?" A deep voice said on the other end. "I'm glad you called." I paused, my heart racing. How did they know my name? How did they know it was me calling? "Yes," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm calling about the letter, the final notice." "We've been trying to reach you," the voice continued. "Your husband's debt has reached a critical point. We've been instructed to move forward with legal action. But before we do, we need you to make a decision." My mind went blank. My breath caught in my throat. "What do you mean? What decision?" "We need you to choose, Lena. We can either settle the debt with a lump sum payment or we can take other measures. We've been authorized to seize assets, garnish wages, and if necessary, take more drastic actions. But we're giving you one final opportunity to resolve this." I felt the walls closing in, the weight of their words, the finality of the decision pressing down on me. I wasn't just making a decision for me. I was making a decision for my daughter, for our future. But what if it wasn't just money at stake anymore? What if the people Daniel was involved with wanted more than just a financial settlement? "Is there another option?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man on the other end of the line hesitated, then answered coldly, "There is always a choice, Lena, but I suggest you make it soon. Time is running out." I hung up, my mind spinning. The decision was no longer just about money. It was about our lives. And the deeper I got into this, the more I realized that the road ahead was full of dangers I couldn't foresee. I had to protect my daughter, protect myself, But how? I couldn't do this alone anymore. I knew that now. I needed to find someone I could trust, someone who could help me understand what Daniel had gotten us into, and how we could get out of it. I called Tom. He had been a part of Daniel's life before me, and he knew things about Daniel's past that I couldn't possibly know. If anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it was him. The phone rang once, twice, and then Tom answered. "Lena," he said, his voice gravelly, like he'd been waiting for this call. "I knew you'd reach out." "Tom, I need your help," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I can't trust Daniel anymore. I can't trust anyone in this mess. But I need to understand. I need to know what's really going on." There was a long pause before Tom spoke again. "You're in deeper than you think. I knew this day was coming, Lena, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you before. But I can't sit back anymore. Daniel's been hiding things from you for a long time, and it's not just money. He's involved with people who don't care about the law, about rules. They take what they want, and they don't leave anyone behind." I felt the fear start to rise in my chest again. "What do you mean? Who are these people, Tom?" "They're not just businessmen. They're part of a larger network, Lena, a network of people who run illegal operations, laundering money through various fronts. Real estate, tech, you name it. Daniel thought he could get in on the action, make some quick money. But now they're not just after him, they're after everything." I felt a chill run down my spine. Everything. That word echoed in my head. This wasn't just about saving my marriage anymore. This was about saving our lives. "I'll help you, Lena," Tom said, his voice softening. "But we have to act fast. They're watching you, watching Daniel, and if we don't do something soon, it's going to get a whole lot worse." Just as I hung up, a knock echoed through the door. My breath caught in my throat, my body stiffening in fear. I walked cautiously toward the door, trying to steady my shaking hands. The world outside had become a web of shadows, and I had no idea who was on the other side of that door. I opened it slowly, just a crack, and a man in a dark coat stood there, holding out a small envelope with no return address. "This is for you," he said, his eyes hard and emotionless. "Make the right choice, Lena." I reached out to take the envelope, my heart pounding in my chest. As I closed the door behind me, I tore it open. The contents were simple, a single photograph of Daniel and me, taken from a distance with a message scrawled on the back. "You're running out of time. Lena's journey into the underworld. Daniel has trapped her in grows darker with each step. With threats closing in from all sides, she must choose who to trust and what risks she is willing to take to save her family. The clock is ticking, and the stakes are higher than ever." The photograph in my hand trembled as I stared at it. My family, under watchful eyes I couldn't see, couldn't escape. The message on the back burned in my mind. "You're running out of time." I turned the photo over and over, trying to make sense of it, but it was just a reminder of how deep Daniel's lies had sunk. I had always thought we were partners, that we'd face life's challenges together. But now, everything had shattered. The lies, the secrets, the dangerous people pulling the strings. I was no longer just Daniel's wife. I was a target. I sat down at the kitchen table, the weight of it all crushing me. I had two choices. One, to fight for my family and risk everything, or two, to turn my back on Daniel, walk away, and protect myself and Samantha from whatever storm was coming. Either way, I knew I couldn't go back to the life I had before. There was no going back to normal. But there was one thing I couldn't deny. I loved Daniel despite everything. And the truth was, I wasn't ready to lose him, even if he had made mistakes I couldn't overlook. We had built a life together, and I couldn't just let it crumble without doing everything I could to save it. I called Tom again. "I need you to meet me," I said. "I need to know what we're up against. I need a plan." The next day, we met at the same cafe, the one where everything had started to unravel. Tom sat across from me, his face grim, his eyes full of caution. "You've made up your mind, haven't you?" he asked. I nodded, my resolve hardening. I'm not walking away from Daniel, but I need to know how we can fix this, how we can get him out of this mess. Tom sighed, running his hand through his hair. I've been waiting for this. I knew you wouldn't turn your back on him. But Lena, you need to understand something. This isn't just about money anymore. This is bigger than you, than Daniel, than anything you've seen. These people, they don't just let go of what they've invested in. What do you mean? I asked, my voice tight with urgency. What will they do if Daniel doesn't pay them? Whatever it takes, Tom said bluntly. If they don't get what they want from him, they'll take it from you. Or worse. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. So what do we do? You fight fire with fire, he replied, but you need to be careful. These people don't just disappear when you call the cops. They have their own ways of handling things, but we can still take them down. We just need the right leverage. The following weeks were a blur of phone calls, meetings, and careful maneuvering. Tom introduced me to a lawyer, Rachel, who specialized in criminal defense and had connections to law enforcement who could help us. Together, we devised a plan. A dangerous one, but the only one that might save Daniel and keep our family intact. It was time to confront the people Daniel had wronged. We couldn't run anymore. We had to face them head on. I spent sleepless nights gathering evidence, files, emails, photos, and preparing myself for the confrontation ahead. Every moment felt like a step closer to the inevitable showdown. But with each passing day, I realized something. This wasn't just about saving Daniel, it was about saving myself. The day of the confrontation arrived, and with it, a wave of fear and determination. Daniel had agreed to meet with the people who had been pulling the strings, his past catching up to him. But this time, he wasn't alone. This time, we were going to fight back. The meeting took place in an old warehouse just outside of town. A place Daniel had been to before, but now it felt different, cold, unwelcoming. The air was thick with tension. I stood beside Daniel as we faced the men who had ruined his life, and potentially ours. Aaron, Daniel said, his voice steady, but his eyes were hard. I'm done running. You've made your point, but you don't get to control my life anymore. Aaron stood across from us, his arms crossed, his gaze cold. You think you can just walk away from this, Daniel? You think you can grow your debts in my face and walk away? I'm not throwing anything in your face, Daniel replied, his voice quieter now, but still full of defiance. I'm paying what I owe, but I'm not going to let you threaten my family anymore. It's over. Aaron's eyes flickered briefly to me, then back to Daniel. This isn't over until we say it's over. I think it is, Tom said from behind me, stepping forward with Rachel at his side. He held out a file, documents, photographs, and a carefully constructed case. We've got enough on you to ruin everything you've built, so unless you want this to go public, unless you want the authorities involved, I suggest you leave Daniel and his family alone. The room was silent for a long moment. Aaron's jaw clenched, his eyes darting between the files in Tom's hand and the menacing silence that had settled over the group. You think you've won, but this isn't the end, Aaron said finally, his voice low, menacing. You don't get to walk away from something like this. You will pay. But it wasn't the same. The weight of his words didn't carry the same power anymore. We had the upper hand, and in that moment, I realized that despite everything, we had survived. We had taken control. The months that followed were a blur of legal battles, settlements, and a long road to rebuilding. The debt was paid, eventually, through a combination of legal action, a negotiated settlement, and the leverage we had gathered. Daniel and I worked together to untangle the mess he had made, and while it wasn't easy, it was a step forward. But what mattered more than anything was the strength I found within myself. I learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to face the darkest parts of your life and make the choice to fight, no matter the cost. And as for Daniel, he was a changed man. He'd learned that trust wasn't something to be taken for granted. He worked hard to regain the trust I'd almost lost. We were never the same, but we were stronger. And as I watched Samantha grow, free from the shadow of the past, I knew that we would be okay. Not because everything was perfect, but because we had chosen to stand together. For the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope, a new beginning.